Hey everybody, we'll just do some intro housekeeping while people get on the call. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Christina Carell. I'm PAVe's education manager, and Charlie Moses from my team is also from the education team at PAVe. We're so glad to have you here on this statewide call for Florida. I want to say thank you to QuitDoc Foundation, which is our partner and co-host for this call. They're a great resource for public health and prevention in Florida. We'll drop their website in the chat in a moment. And I am joined also by Leah Roden and Winna Morin, who are two wonderful PAVe volunteers and parents in Florida. They're going to be presenting, bringing a lot of experience to this presentation. We hope you find it interesting and insightful. The Q&A function is on, so thank you for people who send in questions ahead of time. We have reviewed those. We'll cover a lot of it in the presentation, but if a question comes up, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit stuff to us, and we'll monitor that. So with that, I don't want to waste any time. I'll hand it over to Winna to share her story of how she got involved and why this isn't so important to her. So thanks everyone. I'm going to turn my camera off.
Hey everyone, my name is Winna Morin. I live in Palm Harbor, and it's a small city in the Tampa Bay area in Florida. I wanted to share how I became involved with PAVe, the amazing group that has helped our family so much. I have 3 sons, and our middle and youngest sons were targeted in middle school by flavored nicotine vape. And it took a while for us to catch on that this was even happening because it was so undetectable and new. But pretty much 2 years ago, when our youngest son, Alex, was 16, he's 18 now, I heard some thumping coming from his room. It was on a Sunday morning. And I hate thinking about this. I thought he was getting mad at his video games. So I went in and we found him on the floor seizing. I was not supposed to get emotional, but he was seizing. He was turning blue. He was foaming at the mouth. He had blood coming from his mouth because he bit his tongue so hard. And I really thought I was watching him die. So I called my husband to call 911. And the paramedics came and they handed us a nicotine vape from underneath his body. So when you have a seizure for the first time, they want to admit you. So they took him to the hospital and admitted him to do all the testing and everything. And they did an MRI, CT scan, x-rays, an EEG, labs, blood work. And the weird thing was that everything came back normal. All the tests and scans came back normal. So they put him on an anti-seizure medicine called Keppra, which is kind of like a tranquilizer, but he was on that for 6 months, and then he didn't have another one, so we weaned him off of that. But later in the year, he had a second one, and it was the same thing. We heard a crash, called 911. Paramedics came, and they handed us the vape underneath his body, and off to the hospital he went. So at that point, our neurologist we see over here in St. Pete, it's All Children's Hospital with, what's the name of it? I forget, but it's All Children's Hospital in St. Pete. And he said, at this point, we have to label him as an epileptic because he's had 2 seizures in less than a year. But I kind of think that it's lifestyle related. So you're going to have to look for the commonalities and the common denominator of these situations. Well, Alex he's had 4 more since then. So he's had a total of 6 grand mal seizures. And to this day, the tests are normal, blood work, scans, everything's normal. The common denominator was them handing us the vape underneath his body. So my mother's intuition and my gut was screaming that I knew what it was from. I knew it was from the vape, but even the neurologist couldn't back me up because it was so new and there weren't enough studies done on it. So what's really scary is that it's just available, at least in our area. It's available at every local gas station, convenience store, smoke shop. They can even scan these little QR codes and they can get it delivered to them. So if these kids want it, make no mistake, they can get it, and they are getting it. And they can do it at school. And I think it was one of my sons who told me that, Mom, we wear long sleeves to school, and the kids lean under their desks to get acting like they're getting something out of their backpack, and they breathe the vape down their sleeve. So they can do it whenever and wherever they want, even in school, which is frightening. And it's caused, and the neurologist said, your kid's being targeted by the most addictive substance on the planet. And they're children, and they don't have the coping skills to detox and to dig their way out of this situation. And it's terrible. It's caused anxiety, depression, anger, mood swings. Alex is going to be on meds for years. And if he misses one dose of the meds, he could have a seizure. They get Nick sick. I heard for years, my middle son and my youngest son throwing up violently every morning. Weight loss, pasty skin. And it's awful. It's awful to their whole body. And I know of 8 kids right here in our little town that this has happened to with the seizures. So I can't imagine what's going on in the larger cities. Luckily, we have this, it takes a village. And luckily, Alex had his 2 older brothers and my husband and I as a united front at home. But at school, there was a certain administrator, he's actually the assistant athletic director, that really stuck his neck out for Alex. And he was someone that Alex felt comfortable talking to. So you have to find that person at school that you're comfortable, because we all know that teens don't open up well to adults. So thank you, Mr. Felchi from Palm Harbor University. You really made a difference in Alex's life. Also, our pediatrician was amazing. And she didn't hesitate to tell Alex, it's not your fault, you were targeted. And she explained to him how the heavy metals shot straight to his brain. And that was another one that he opened up to. And he still sees an adolescent psychiatrist virtually. And she helps with the mental aspects of this and the addiction parts and just anything he needs to talk about. So and his friends, my God, his friends, a lot of them I think are on here right now. Thank you. I reached out to them and they heard me. And because of their love for their friend Alex, they would stand up to him and say, dude, what are you doing? Just stop it. Or they reach out to me and say, he's vaping and I don't know what to do. So it just took home, school, friends, doctors, it was just this whole circle. So, and PAVe, I'm so grateful to have found this group, and they have a private parent group support group where we can also talk. So that's how I got to know PAVe. Thank you.
Leah, do you want to go ahead with?
Yes, thank you for your story, Wenna. I know that's not easy to do, but it is an important story to hear. You're actually the first parent that I've ever heard from about the actual seizures. I know it's something that can happen, and I've heard about it in the media, but actually listening to a parent that you can connect to, you're the first one. I'm going to share my screen real quick. We'll get started. We do want to thank everyone for being on the webinar with us today, e-cigarettes and the youth vaping epidemic. This is my second time presenting with PAVe, and I'm really excited to be on here today. Oh, I started this and I can't see. Here we go. There you go. Can you see that?
We see it with
we
your
can.
notes.
Yeah.
Do you see it?
Can you see the note view so we can?
I know.
See.
I don't know how to take. I never know how to take that.
If you I think if you hit escape, and then on the bottom where the little slideshow symbol is, bottom towards the right, over right for that one. I think it'll show just the screen. Nope. Do you want me to share my slide?
Yeah, you go ahead and do it. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay.
You would think after all this time doing all this technology, we'd have figured it out by now.
I mean, with PowerPoint, it is tricky.
Okay, so while she's getting, Christina's getting that up for us, I am Leah Roden. I'm the director of the Baker Prevention Coalition. We're in North Florida in Baker County, and I work with youth prevention of substance use, but I'm also a mom. I have 2 teenagers, and then I have 2 little ones. So I completely relate to Winna's story. I definitely, know where that could take me. It's just kind of scary. So I do commend you for doing that. My first exposure to e-cigarettes was in February of 2018. It's crazy to me now that we've been dealing with this for 4 years. Sometimes I feel like we've made some progress, and sometimes it doesn't feel that way. But I do appreciate PAVe. I sought them out as a resource myself and the work I do, but also as a parent. So we're going to cover who is PAVe, the national epidemic that I just mentioned, we're still still dealing with that. Predatory big tobacco, I think that's a big piece of it that we have to focus on, especially when you think about in the 90s, we were dealing with big tobacco, and Tobacco Free Florida and other organizations across the country did so much work. And now it's almost like we're starting over again with that same work again with vapes. Why are teens vaping? That's always a really good question. But what are the health harms? Because we are getting researched, and we have evidence now of the health harms, and a little bit more from Winna's perspective of what can parents do. That's something that even the parent that I am, knowing all the things I know, there are still things that happen. And we are volunteer speakers. I do this as my job, but I am here as a volunteer for PAVe, and I'm also here. So I'm here as a parent, and I'm here professionally. So we appreciate Winna for being here. I think PAVe is really unique because they started as a grassroots effort with 3 moms, and in 2018 with Jewel. So that's really is what kind of drew me to PAVe. Is, the other organizations are great, but when it's moms, there's nothing that you can't fight. Mama Bear is gonna come to the aid of her children. So we are national advocacy and education nonprofit powered by parent volunteers. Again, this is my job, but I'm here as a parent too. Fighting the youth vaping epidemic and big tobacco. So we support the ending sale of the all flavored e-cigarettes and menthol flavored tobacco products. So we have been working on that. Actually, I just saw something come out today about the FDA. So just holding them to the fire with so the different laws across the country. PAVe is very involved in that. Again, a small group of angry committed moms have done a lot of work. It's quickly grown into the national parent voice on the youth vaping epidemic, largely because of the volunteers and the original founders, our moms that kind of got us, going. And I think that's one of the things Winna probably was feeling that too, is okay, you go through the problem and what's happening, but then you're like, okay, how can I help other people not go through the same thing? The kids and the parents, because it's not easy for anybody. So several successful campaigns have gotten legislation passed throughout the country, and we continue to grow as a volunteer network. They've actually been invited to the White House, and that was really important to me. I thought that was impactful. And the main goal is advocacy and literacy efforts is to get the flavors off the market, not only the e-cigarette flavors, but the flavored tobacco products as well, because that is what the kids are using. So based on what the kids are using, we know that. So if we look at some data, so youth vaping in 2021, and some of our data, it's been tough. COVID has affected us in many, many ways. Here in our county in Florida, Baker was one of 3 counties that actually did not collect the FISIS data, which is the Florida Youth Substance Abuse Survey. So we have it was data, but not enough was collected for an entire sample. So we've been relying on the state data, which is fine, but it is nice to have your local data too. But if we look at the data, so data collected early in 2021, 2.2 million teens were vaping. The data from 2020 did show 3.6 million, which is 20 to 25% of high schoolers were current users. That I don't want to say that's not an accurate number, but I feel like it's a skewed number due to COVID. So we weren't necessarily surveying everybody. Everybody might not have been surveyed. Some use might have gone down a little bit because of availability, whatever. But FDA announcement was that 2020 data is not a trend. It is not comparable to previous years. The survey was collected during the stay-at-home, just like I just said. So it's not reflective of our current rates. And I think that a number of organizations probably have that same issue with their data. So now that kids are back in school and they are around their friends and they're doing more, going out more, they're, things are open, we do feel that there will be an increase. And we actually here in Florida did just finish in the last couple months, finish our data that we will hopefully receive in the next couple months. And I anticipate an increase in vaping. Of course, it would be nice if we did not have that increase, but it's very likely. So when you look at that Florida data from 2021, specifically our high school use, 32.2% of our Florida high schoolers reported trying vaping, with 18.3 reporting current use. And I think that even trying it says a lot, even though, okay, well, maybe they didn't use it again, but maybe they did. But the fact that they even made that poor choice is not a good sign. And we'll talk more about the actual level of nicotine in these products. It's very unlikely that someone's going to use it once and not use it again, just because of the sheer addiction piece with the nicotine. So 51.2% reported exposure to secondhand e-cigarette aerosol. So they were around people who were vaping. That's definitely alarming. Middle school use, 15.2% of those middle schoolers reported ever having tried vaping, with 8% reporting current use. So a little bit lower use rate in our middle school, but then you still see that high number of the 40% reporting exposure to secondhand e-cigarette aerosol. So definitely the numbers are there. In 2022, we're still waiting on regulatory action. The disposables have become a huge problem. And if you go into a gas station, that's probably what you're seeing. Those are the puff bars, Fume, Hyde. When we teach our citation class for kids who've been received a citation for vaping, I always ask them, who's willing to tell me what you're caught with? And most of them, that's what they're saying now, is the disposables and those brands. Up to 10 million disposables sold per month in the U.S. convenience stores. That number is crazy to me. When we were going over this PowerPoint, and you just hear that updated number, it's just like, wow, it's mind blowing. Vape detector sales have increased for schools. That's something that our school district has reached out to us about. And some of our grant funding allows us to purchase that. Some of it doesn't. Some of them, when I was really curious at how they worked in the beginning, like, how does this even work? And it detects pressure, a drop in pressure, an increase in pressure. Some of them might detect a smell. It just depends on which product you're going with. So the accuracy of those is definitely something that we're still kind of gauging, but it is a tool that's out there, a resource. Even if the kids think it's in there, maybe they won't be doing it, because the school bathroom is the most popular place that we hear that they're vaping. So definitely, if they see that in the corner, maybe they'll think twice about using it there. 550 plus schools districts, as well as many states attorneys in general, are suing Juul and others for marketing to children. That's definitely become a huge trend that we're seeing. So they're being punished for that. But now Juul isn't even the one that we need to worry about. The majority of the vape companies that we need to be concerned with that are in the gas stations, convenience stores, those are those tobacco companies. So they've basically just moved from tobacco over to the vape products. And if you're familiar with any of the tobacco data, you'll see that there's a reason why they've done that, because cigarette use is down, way down. We worked so hard with Tobacco Free Florida and different organizations throughout the state to get that use down. And so when you see this, you're like, okay, now you kind of see they lost money. They were losing money. How are we going to increase sales? And we have actual memos, quotes from tobacco companies that they say, the middle school, high schooler is our future customer. They need that longevity, to be able to keep going. So you do see the trend there that the cigarette use is definitely down, but of course, e-cigarette use is definitely up. And one of the arguments is that e-cigarettes are preventing that cigarette use from going up, but really and truly, we don't want them using either one of these products. So we should be doing anything and everything we can to get rid of any of the access to either of them. So that is definitely a PAVe focus. So we started with Juul, and you can even see this is the marketing that was happening. The blue products were all about freedom, and this is how it should be. You've got the really pretty colorful things. They had tasting rooms. You do see the nicotine warning out there. That is something that was actually that came from some of the FDA regulations. But 90% of addiction occurs before the age of 21. So if companies can get their kids hooked before that age, they're definitely more likely to actually stay hooked to that product, and they've become that lifelong customer. So they know that, and they're trying to replace the market. I was actually telling Christina that I had seen an ad for the Views Alto, or was a Views product, and they were talking about how green they have become, and we're going to reference that in just a minute. But just seeing their marketing on TV, a commercial on TV, I was just like, what in the world? And everybody's streaming on different platforms, and we use YouTube TV as our streaming platform. So it just was really kind of shocking to see that. But I know that's another thing that we've worked really hard on over the years, is the marketing for tobacco products, but we still see it with the vaping products. You've got the youth marketing with email and social, TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit. There are so many different things out there that the kids are on. Twitter, that's where they're seeing these things. And a lot of it, the parent might not see. Unfortunately, I like some of the substance use, like even marijuana, the things, I like them on my social media, only because you kind of need to keep up with what's happening. And I've asked my own kids, what are you seeing ads for, Snapchat, and they've shared some things with me, and you're just kind of like, I can't believe that they get away with that, but it's an easy place for them to get away with it. So especially with the emails, if they happen to get their emails, but the launch parties are definitely something that they were having, all those kind of things. So, but if you look at how they're marketing now based on how they marketed back then, it's not really that different. And I always think those old ads with the doctors, where the doctors recommended the use of a certain product, you're just like, now that's crazy, but that's how it was, that many years ago. But now that's the same thing. You've got down there, the new study shows e-cigs help kick smoking habits, which could very possibly be true, but we do not want a youth using either of those products. So that's not a marketing tool. And then you've got the Marlboro Man was replaced over here with Stephen Dorff, and he's got his blue cigarette. He was the one that was all about freedom. And before the Florida Clean Indoor Air Act included e-cigs, there was a lot of, you could still do this wherever you wanted. You had the freedom to vape where you couldn't smoke, but now that's not the same anymore. Now you cannot use a vape in the same place that you can't smoke a cigarette. So that kind of went away. But the point of sale advertising, that's one of the biggest focuses that we were working on in Florida, or Tobacco Free Florida. And I didn't, honestly, as a parent, my children were young when I first went into the tobacco world. I didn't pay attention to these things because I didn't use these products. But now that I do this job, and we do environmental scans, you pay attention. My children get aggravated with me because I'll go back into a store to take a picture of an ad that I've seen on a door. The biggest one that I remember was the Views Alto was 99¢. And I walked into a Kangaroo gas station, and right across the door handle was 99¢, real big. And I thought, oh my goodness. And that was before the disposables. That was one of the very first ones that, it wasn't disposable, but it was different than Juul. And you see Juul there, $9.99. They are affordable, because some people are like, how do the kids afford these things? And I'm like, they're not as, as expensive as you think they might be. And there's a reason why they've made these cheaper disposables, so that they can be easier for the kids to get. It's interesting. Look at the placement of those things. Where do they put them? What are they putting them by? You might see them by the snow cones, snow cone machine. Definitely higher density near schools, low income neighborhoods. These are people with more people of color. These are all things that have been proven. When we go out and do our environmental scans for our organization, you also have Tobacco Free Florida grantees going out and doing point of sale where they're looking at these things. So these are things that we are actually seeing in stores, so we can prove this is evidence. And then you have your true vape stores that are very different from a convenience store. So that's a whole nother another issue that we're having to deal with too. As long as they're following the rules and they're doing the right thing, then yes, it's not a problem. But if they are selling to minors, then it does become a problem. And we do have that issue here in Baker. We have a total of 4 in our small community. We have a total of 4 vape stores, and we do know one of them that is supplying to the youth. So our sheriff's office is now having to figure out with ABT what can they do and how can they fix that. So the predatory tobacco industry definitely targets our youth. That's been proven through lots of different ways. You've got the LGBTQ population, former military veterans, low income neighborhoods, rural populations, racial and ethnic minorities. That's been going on for years. Same with Native Americans, people with mental illness. There was a huge campaign for the minorities that have been affected by tobacco products over the years. That's definitely something that we are talking a lot more about now than we ever have. the military isn't interesting. I have a friend who told me he started smoking in the military because everybody else was going to take a smoke break on the ship. And so he was in the Navy. So he started to take a smoke break because he couldn't have that break they were having, but they could take that smoke break. Now he no longer smokes, but that was an interesting point to me that that's why he started, was so that he could still be a part of getting that time off to be able to go smoke. And I think we've come a long way from that, but it is still a group that we do see being targeted. And more on the history of the targeting of Black Americans, especially with the menthol products. 85% of African American smokers use menthol products. The documentary is that I was referring to is Black Lives, Black Lungs. It's very interesting if you watch it and you're just kind of a little bit mind blown that was going on. African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council is very active. They have savingblacklives.org. Menthol encourages nicotine addiction and dependence because it masks that nasty flavor, and it also helps with that burning. And so menthol is one of the flavors that was allowed to be kept in the e-cigarette flavor ban. They did not ban the menthol, but if you're talking about the puff bars, the disposables, they don't have any of that ban on the flavors. This is always a really interesting question. We go into the 5th grade here in Baker, and we talk to every 5th grader. And every time we do the vaping lesson, we see probably 20 classes. Almost every class, one of the kids will say, if this is so bad for us, why are they allowed to sell it? And that is it's the easiest question you could ever ask, but the answer is never easy. And it really is, because it comes down to money. But the FDA has failed to fully regulate these for years. Even before 2018, when we really started to see the increase, the policies have exempted most popular products, those disposables I just referred to, the e-liquids, the menthol, and then now the synthetic nicotine is not regulated by FDA. So I had somebody ask me that today. If it's not derived from tobacco necessarily, it could be a salt nicotine where it's been created in a lab. So it's different, it's synthetic. So there's those loopholes in our laws, and that's where that puff bar comes into play there. And then you have all the different types of devices. And I was actually going to, I don't think I have a device on me. I was going to show you one that I thought was really interesting. Our high school and our middle school resource officers like to give us some of the products they collect that they confiscate from the kids, just so we see what's happening. And one of those puff bars, actually, it's like almost like a double tube thing. It has a fan on it, and there's a small fan and a large fan. And I was like, what is that for? And he was like, I'm not real sure. It's got something to do with the flow, I guess. So I took it to our citation class that night, and I asked the kids, what does this do? And they're like, it gives you a bigger hit of nic. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So there's 2 levels of a hit that you can get. So that was very interesting to see that. But that's just another technique that they're using to make it cooler, to make it easier to use, make it something that they can, you get more addicted to the nicotine. So the kids are gravitating towards the, are we still up? I lost the screen. Is it still going?
Yeah.
Okay. So the kids are gravitating toward, what'd somebody say?
I just said, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. So the kids are gravitating towards the disposable e-cigarettes. They were introduced in 2020. There was 1,000% increase in those disposable vapes. Obviously, they're easier. They don't necessarily look like they're a product that you shouldn't be using. They're colorful. Some of them look like a USB, just like a little mini USB. Some of them are a little bit larger. But if you're a parent that doesn't know about those, then you're not going to see, you're not going to know that that's something that, oh, my kid probably shouldn't have that device. The favorites have been the pod base. So Juul, Smoke, Soarin', Views. Those were all some of the favorites of the pod bases. In 2017, Juul did lead the market into 2018 with 70% of the market share, which is crazy for one company. But then they, thanks to PAVe and a lot of the work that the ladies did, they have been, called to the carpet, and they're in trouble. So a lot of the work that they did, they laid the foundation for these other companies to come through and these other products. So one of the things that's an additional danger with the pod base is that they're not meant to be refillable, but these kids are smart. I mean, we know that this generation is definitely smart. And even if they're not smart, there are resources out there to teach them things. And they have learned to repurpose the pods, and they can put other things in them. They can put THC in them. There's no, there's no limit on what they can put in them. That's something that's liquefied, they can put it into that pod. So that's where it gets a little scary. If you're not necessarily buying it from somewhere that is a trusted source, then you don't know what you're exposing yourself to. You could be exposing yourself to bacteria and a product that's laced with something. And that's becoming the concern, especially with fentanyl. And sometimes it's not even meant to be in the product. It's just cross contamination. So if you're getting it from someone who does use those things or puts that in other products, then it does become a danger. So you also have the refillable devices, and they're also popular among the teens, especially when it comes to the THC. The THC is definitely one of the things that you're going to find in one of the refillable pods. And we do have that problem here in our small county. We have kids that get caught with THC. Now they are still writing them a citation for it because that sends them to the education class that comes with the citation. So that's a good thing. That's a partnership we have with our sheriff's office in our school district that's an agreement. But that's where the flavors really, you see all the crazy flavors. And I think it's crazy. You've got the Puff Tarts, bubble, all the different bubble flavor. And then you've got the really cool looking, the Soar and Drop that, that when I first saw those, like that does not look anything like a device. So to see that, you're like, what is that? You don't even know as a parent, or it might even look like the one over there on the right that just looks like a pen. So they work by you putting the loose liquid inside that, and you pour it into the refillable device. So, but again, that can be used with THC and other things that can be liquefied that can be dangerous. And then you also have other nicotine flavored products. This is definitely newer. I was at a training I guess it was probably about a year ago, and they kept talking about Zen, and I was like, what are they talking about? And so she mentioned, the person was she's from Dixie County. She was like, this, tell me about the product. So when I came back into town, I said, well, let me look and see if I can find that. And sure enough, at the Murphy gas station by Walmart, there was Zen. And when I walked in, we purchased these things just so that we have, something that we can show parents. And I told her I wanted to get that Zen product. And she said, you want 4 milligrams or 6 milligrams? And I was like, go ahead and give me both, because I didn't really know the difference. And I have the lemon. And when I opened it up to smell it, it smelled just like lemon furniture polish. Like it was just crazy to me. It did not smell like something I'd want to put in my mouth or in my body. It smelled like a chemical product. But this is definitely becoming more popular. And when you see that, especially the Velo down at the bottom, those just look like mint containers. They don't look like anything that a parent would be alarmed. And you've got the nicotine toothpicks up in the upper right, definitely products are just like, to me, they can't hide that they're trying to hide these products, like what they actually are. They're trying to make them look like something that they can use. And when she talked about the kids wearing long sleeves, they actually make different hoodies where the string that's in the hoodie is actually a tube to vape out of. There is a vaping watch that when you open it up, it comes off and it's a vape product. Our resource officers actually sent that one to me. We have a group text message that we kind of share things with, and they had been down at the FASRO resource officer convention in Tampa, and they sent me some other things that people were showing them. And it was just, it's scary about how hard they are trying to make products that they can hide, and that they help the kids use these products. They're definitely helping them. And then now the next thing that's kind of become a craze is this non-nicotine vape. And we actually had a student in our regular prevention classes at the high school asked us about vaping vitamins and vaping melatonin, that she had seen it come across her Snapchat as an ad. And I was like, what? And so really and truly, vaping anything is dangerous. It's not something that we should be doing. It's not good for your lungs. It's just not something that is safe. So and when I was talking to Christina about this, I had told her that because even essential oils can be dangerous if you don't know where they're coming from. There was a case recently with the essential oil diffusers that you can buy at Walmart from Better Homes and Garden brand. People their deaths have been linked to it because it had a bacteria in it. And I don't know if it was a specific lot of whatever the essential oil was that was sold, but they died because they inhaled whatever bacteria and other chemical that came from that diffuser. So you really need to know, and this goes with essential oil, CBD, any of those products that you use. I mean, even just something as simple as collagen has kind of become the craze. you have to research where it's coming from. You need to read the ingredient label, and you cannot read the ingredient label on a lot of these products because they don't want you to be able to read them. And they're not required to make you do that. That's one of the things that PAVe works on is you have to tell us what's in this product. So they contain propylene glycol, the glycerol, all the things that can still be dangerous in a vape, a nicotine vape. They're highly accessible, definitely unregulated, just like a lot of the e-cigarette products. And they're not substantiated in those health and safety claims. There's not research. There's not anything long-term proven that it will do what it tells you it will do. And I had somebody a while ago tell me that vapes and CBD have become the new snake oil. So if you're familiar with, the old wagon trail, when the guy came around with his wagon and his snake oil, it would cure everything, and you believed him because, I want to feel better, or I want this to not happen to me. So I think that's what's happening. And especially with young people, they, and I think this is going to come up on one of the slides is why they do it. And that we'll talk about that. But the biggest concern for me that I've really learned over the years is that these products are so much more addictive than cigarettes. I have family members that have smoked, and I've watched them try to quit over the years, and it's very, very hard. And the average person attempts to quit 11 times before they're successful. I was on a webinar the other day where they said 39% of people who are addicted to nicotine will never quit it because it's so addictive. They will never be able to quit because they just can't stop doing it. So that's what's very scary with the kids is that these products that they're using are more addictive than cigarettes. There's high levels of the nicotine salts. They're designed to hit the bloodstream in your brain more quickly. So that right there initially rushes the addiction. They can be used discreetly. We've already talked a lot about that, and continuously. The nicotine in one device equals 1 to 2 packets of cigarettes. We have a really great slide from the tobacco prevention toolkit that was out of Stanford University, and they show you all the different amounts of the different products, and they test them to see the equivalence of a pack of cigarettes to what the product is. And the Juul is a lot lower than some of these new products like the Puff Bar and the Hyde. Those are really interesting slides. If you're ever looking for something like that, the tobacco prevention toolkit is another great resource that we use along with PAVe. A cigarette, was nicotine, came from the burning leaves. We all know that. It typically, you would go outside to smoke. You wouldn't stay inside the house. And it was a single contained portion, definitely harsher to inhale. They say that vaping is as easy as sucking air through a straw. Initially that first nic hit might hit you a little bit differently, but once they get used to that, it's easy for them to do. So that's a little scary. And I think that's part of the reason why it has been so difficult. It's been easy for the kids to use it, but definitely why it's difficult for them to quit. That's definitely part of the problem. So when you talk about the chemicals, all of the chemicals that you see in a vape, so the ones that you see in red, the FDA has established they are part of the known harmful and potentially harmful substances. So they know that. We know those things are bad. So why do we let people put them in their body? That's the question that just seems so simple to ask. But again, the answer is very complicated. And I do believe that COVID has definitely kind of slowed some of the progress we were making, just because it was a huge health concern that took a front seat. Was more important. Not to say that it was. I'm not saying it wasn't more important, but some of these issues that we had with vaping only made, if you had COVID, worse. So this is still an important thing, and we've got to get back on track. And PAVe has not, quit pumping the gas when it comes to making the FDA make good on the promises that they've given us, told us what they would do. But these chemicals they're very, very dangerous. And when I do this slide with the kids in class, and I do this with my citation kids and in prevention, we talk about some of the things that you see on here. What do you know? Some of these chemicals, acetone takes off nail polish. That's a pretty severe chemical. They talk about the different metals and arsenic, rat poison, formaldehyde. We preserve dead bodies with formaldehyde. So a lot of them they know they're very dangerous. So especially our 5th graders, when we go through this, and we hope they have not initiated use, they definitely are like, wow, makes you maybe hopefully think twice before putting that into your body. And we spend a lot of time talking about the brain. And I think that obviously as a kid, you don't think about that. But I think as parents, and educators, anybody in that wants our children to have, to be at their best when it comes to their brain, whether it's mental health or they're trying, academics. Addiction is not good for the adolescent brain, and these products make the brain highly susceptible to the addiction, especially because some of those chemicals that we just looked at make it happen faster, make open your lungs so that it happens quicker, or that you inhale it quicker, it delivers to your brain quicker. You have your sensitive dopamine reward pathway means rewiring for further addiction. So yes, you might quit right now, but then a couple of years later, you are more susceptible to re-engage in an addictive behavior because that pathway that you've already just kind of created in your brain. It causes permanent cognitive changes. It worsens your memory, processing speed, impulse control. Obviously, those processing things are definitely things that should be important to schools because we want our kids performing at their best. Mood disorders definitely can worsen anxiety and depression. And that's something I know somebody that tells me, well, I smoke because I get anxiety. Well, really, you're not. That's a myth because your body is actually experiencing anxiety. You're putting more anxiety onto your body when you're using those chemicals and those products. So a lot of the kids will tell you, well, I use because I have anxiety. And I do know that our kids are growing up in a world that is so different than any of us adults grew up in. I would not give anything to go back and be a teenager during these times just because of what they go through and the things that they're exposed to. But the anxiety is going to be there. So we need to teach them other ways to deal with that, not going to a product, because you have an anxiety right now as a kid. It only gets worse as an adult. When you really start adulting and you have other big issues that come forward, you want to have those skills. And that we do a lot of that in our prevention education, is teaching kids skills that will help them deal with whatever they're dealing with physically, mentally, and not go to a product, not go to some type of substance to make them feel better. That does not solve your problems. It does not make things better. So when you talk about how vaping affects the other parts of the body, obviously you're inhaling something, so you're affecting your lungs. You vape the aerosol. A vape aerosol contains heavy metals, ultrafine particulates, myriad of chemicals. So we just showed all those chemicals, reaches deep in your lungs, causing the irritation, inflammation, potential for allergies to hidden ingredients. There are some people who have a bad reaction to vaping, or they allow a bacteria in their body that it reacts in a different way because it's been exposed, and it's something that you wouldn't have even known as an underlying condition. But definitely, it's not a good thing. Asthma, obviously, and then chronic lung disease. I do think it's going to take us some time to really know the true effects over the years of how it affects people. It's just like cigarettes. It took us a long time. Now we do have more technology, and we are quicker because of our technology, but we are still, it's going to take some time to really truly know the damage. But we know of kids who have had to have a double lung transplant, who've, they might have died from vaping. I mean, there's, the cases are coming. We're starting to learn the cases. You've got I think EVALI comes up in one of these slides. That's where we'll talk about that. But your heart, nicotine affects the heart. It's interesting. My mother-in-law actually quit smoking and started vaping because her sisters were doing it and they thought it was better for them. 6 months after she started vaping, she had a heart attack. Now, was it the vaping? We don't know. But I do know, after a lot of the things I've gone through with these different trainings and classes, you do receive more nicotine quicker with a vape, than a cigarette, because of the way they're designed. So yes, it could have caused her to have her heart attack. Again, she smoked for many years, so that didn't help. But nicotine is a stimulant. It restricts your blood flow, increases your blood pressure, adrenaline, heart rate, all those things, causes cardiovascular disease. The flavor chemicals can be toxic to your heart cells. So definitely dangerous for us to inhale anything for our heart. So just one of the other ways it's definitely not good for our body. So especially if you're someone that's trying to heal from a surgery or heal from something like that, it's going to slow the healing process. So those are all things that are important. Christine, you want to go? And then, so how does vaping affect the body in other ways? Additional risks include a weakened immune system, seizures, as we just heard from Winna, from the nicotine poisoning, gastrointestinal issues and weight loss, negative impact on your mouth microbiome, which affects immune response and later disease. So those are all things that definitely are going to include in that. And then so EVALI is what I was referring to. That is an ongoing vaping associated lung injury, and nearly 3,000 recorded cases and 70 deaths as of February 2020. So we are seeing people dying from vaping. The CDC stopped officially reporting at that time due to COVID. So really, and despite what you feel about COVID or any of the issues, we know that COVID is a lung disease. So if you are doing something that is going to make your lungs unhealthy, then yes, you're going to be more susceptible of it. So there are people who might have been said that they died because of COVID, but it could have also been because they were vaping. So that's where the COVID and vaping is very serious. And we tell this to the kids all the time. If you're concerned about wearing a mask and being out in public, but you're vaping, well, that should be on your list of things that you're concerned about, not just for COVID-19, but any other disease that we could be exposed to. I mean, there are other things that, viruses and bacteria come and go, and there could be something else that comes along that vaping, you're basically making your body unhealthy. So it's not going to be good over time.
I just wanted to jump on and say,
yeah,
I wonder if we have a lot more people on now than we did in the very beginning. And I wonder if since we just mentioned seizures again, if you wanted to give like the 1-minute version
Sure.
again of
Absolutely. So thank you all for joining. And I just wanted to go back over what happened to our youngest son, Alexander. He was 16 and he was targeted in middle school with the flavored nicotine vapes. And we found him in his room one morning. We thought he was having a temper tantrum over his video games, and he was seizing on the floor. And he was blue and foaming at the mouth and bleeding. And I thought I was watching my son die, and we had to call the paramedics. And they handed us the vape underneath his body, and total, he's had 6 grand mal seizures. And the neurologist really wanted us to find the common denominator, because he thought maybe this is not epilepsy, maybe it's a lifestyle situation, and you need to look really closely and find out what the common denominator is. And that was the paramedics handing us the vape underneath his body. He's had 6, he's on seizure meds for the unforeseeable future. And if he misses 1 dose, he will have a seizure. And it's scary because he's away in another state at college right now. But luckily it's so important to have that circle around you. And he's surrounded himself with an amazing brotherhood in his fraternity, and they know his situation and they support him. And our family has lifted him up, and we were a united front for him. But, he could have died. And it took 2 years for him to even acknowledge that it was an issue, and 2 years for us to fight every day and just get him off of it. But he was absolutely targeted, and seizures happened because of it.
thanks for sharing.
And I think that story is, like I said, is just amazing. First of all, that you want to share it with us, but it's definitely scary, and kids think, oh, that won't happen to me, but I'm sure that you think that, and it definitely can. I don't know, we're on to the reasons that teens vape. Do you know the reason he started vaping?
The things I love that Anne listed.
I'm not sure. I know his brother's on this call, but I think they did it because everyone else was doing it. And it was something they could get away with and kind of be like, we're being sneaky, and it's this candy flavored stuff, and we're going to go be the cool kids. I think that's why. Not exactly.
I think that's the majority from what we hear is, I was in the bathroom and they passed it to me and I just did it, peer pressure. And I think that this is something that's hard for us adults to hear is, I don't want to be the kid that's not doing everything that everybody else is doing, because they will torture you. I mean, there's all kinds of avenues for them to cyberbully and whatever. And I know that seems silly, and we can easily say, oh, just say no. But I do think it's hard for them. And then some of it too, I've heard kids say, I didn't want to they told me if I didn't do it, that they would tell on me, which kind of reverse psychology, but the whole snitches get stitches. You don't want to be the one that's not doing it, because if they get caught, then you're in trouble, a lot of things like that. And it just seems really scary. But the youth targeting, obviously the marketing, is definitely affordability, because they can afford it. They can buy it from each other, buy it from the stores, buy it online. There are definitely ways. And then the flavors, it doesn't taste bad. So yeah, I can do this. And if it's going to make me feel better, forget that I was stressed out, I think that definitely helps. But I truly feel the number one is definitely peer pressure, because their belts is doing it and they're around each other. And I think they could have used the I didn't know it was so bad for me excuse a couple years ago, but now I don't think they can do that. I definitely think that we are doing a better job of getting that education out there, thanks to organizations like PAVe and others, tobacco campaign for tobacco free kids, all the different national organizations that are really working. So adding to that, we have the social norms and social pressure, heightened stress, anxiety, depression. We're definitely talking more about mental health than we ever used to. So I think that connection is really being made, but we're only touching the surface of that. We definitely need more mental health in the community, in our communities. Self-medication, they think if I do this, it's going to make me feel better. But there might be a better option if there is really, like if you were having headaches or whatever reason it might be. And then of course you're going to have some problems when you try to get off of the addiction substance like nicotine. You're going to have withdrawals. So you do get that head rush from the nicotine, and it's highly addictive. They're using it because they can't not use it. They can't stop thinking about it. And there is a perceived lower risk than obviously using another substance. We do have that happening. And then it's easier to use because we can't find the things that they're doing. We have hidden in plain sight. We actually it's a campaign that we have, and we set up a bedroom, and it has about 50 red flags for substance use. Now some of them are hardcore red flags, but then some of them are very simple. Like if you're looking at this desk, how many of those things can you actually spot and know, what actually is happening, what's bad there. So if you can find the e-cigarettes, I'll give you a second to look at the picture, and then we'll show you the ones that are actually products. And some of them you might recognize. So you have the pen, and then you have the Soren drop, that yellow thing that we talked about earlier. But then you've got the one down at the bottom, the black, sitting next to the USB, and it looks exactly like a USB. I have a hookah pen that's in our display that looks just like what I call a health fair pen. It's rainbow, and it looks just like one of those pens that you used to always get at the health fair. Everybody had the same pen with their logo on it or their name on it. That's all it looks like. So if it's sitting in that cup holder, you have no idea what that is. And I know, Winna, you wanted to add something about the hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, can you see me? I don't know if you can see. Walking into our son's room, it just looks like a normal student's desk, and unbelievable. One thing that I would add to this is, like, if you see the like frayed or spliced, like, I don't know if you can see it, like a phone charging cable, and I found probably 50 or 100 of those things in his room over the years. So just if your alarms start going off, listen to that, listen to your gut and your intuition, because chances are you're onto something.
And I think that's a really good point, because that was one I hadn't heard of, and I was like, oh gosh. And I do know that that's some of the things that parents talk about. And I forgot to say, when we first learned about Juul, I actually had a friend from a neighboring county reach out to me and ask me if I had seen Juul, and I was like, Juul, Juul, what is that? It's not spelled right, totally clueless. And I had not seen it. So I asked one of our youth volunteers, I said, hey, have you ever seen this before? She's like, no, I haven't seen it. A week later, she comes to me with her phone on her Snapchat, and she said, is this what you asked me about? And the kid had Snapchat, took a picture of his computer at school, his school laptop at school with the Juul plugged into it. And I was like, what? So and I feel like ever since then, we've just kind of been just trying to stay above surface with it. But I immediately took it to our superintendent and administrators, and we knew it was going to be an issue. So, and that was, like I said, in 2018. So what are some signs of teen vaping? I think as a parent, that's probably and it's funny because, like, I read these and I think, oh my gosh, my kid might do some of that, but we have open discussions and we'll talk about that. But definitely a secretive attitude, the closed door, frequent excuses to use the bathroom or go outside. I definitely think that's a sign for teachers, is a kid who's always using the bathroom. yes, of course we use the bathroom at the same time sometimes, but always, like, if you talk with other teachers and this same student is going every class, then definitely something's going on. A sweet smell. We walked into one of the hallways at the high school and I was like, what is that smell? And it's like, is it body spray or is it a vape? Because you really just don't know anymore. Using candles or room freshener to disguise the smell. Dry mucous membranes from the propylene glycol. So they're drinking a lot more, craving more salt or spice. They might have nosebleeds. They might have mouth sores. You'll see those unusual items like a colorful plastic cap, the USB drives, small highlighters or pens, or like Winna just said, those cords. And then you'll also possibly see changes in their sleeping patterns. They might have a raspy cough, lung infections, chest pain, shortness of breath, pneumonia. We all know that person that we're kind of like, oh, they have a smoker's cough, or they have a smoker's voice, because they just kind of have that sound. But some of those same chemicals that are found in cigarettes are found in the vape. So they're going to have the same impact on your body. Heightened caffeine sensitivity, jitteriness, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, anger. I definitely think that's a big one. And especially if they are not able to get their nic, or they're trying to quit their nic, that's definitely something that you're going to experience. So it's like, is it normal teenage moodiness, or is there a problem? So like, you have to kind of take all of these in and see if there's a problem, like see if there's a continuous pattern. So, and then added to it, the changing in eating habits. They might have nausea, gastrointestinal issues, weight loss, nic sick. Like that was one of the things Winna said. An unknown or increased spending or deliveries. Like, I think that's a huge one, is like, I just gave you $20. Where did it go? So really not just handing out money, but where's it going? What are you doing with it? And I think a lot of parents, that are worried about their kids spending anyways, are just going to be trying to do a budget, hopefully. So you're going to have a pretty good read on that anyways. But one of the other things that I thought of when we were going through this was, I'm trying to remember what it was. It wasn't, one of the things we tell the kids that it can cause is it can actually cause problems with your reproductive system. And I know that right now we don't want our teenagers to be thinking about having children, but 10 years from now, if they're a 15-year-old and they, 10 years from now, they want to have children. I'm sure most, a lot of kids kind of know now they might have kids, or they might not want to have kids. Some of the chemicals can affect their body, affect their reproductive system. So it's an interesting perspective when we look at some of these kids who are going through this. How many children are going to now later on in adult life experience infertility because of the things they did to their body? And it's found in both male and female. That's a newer thing that we're kind of learning about. So how do you talk to your child about vaping? My poor children probably, they could almost teach this part for me. But that's one of the things, is having a conversation coming from a place of understanding and support. I tell the parents in our nicotine and citation class, give your child grace, because there's a high likelihood that they're addicted to this product and they're going to be defensive. So you don't want to necessarily come at them from an angry place. Remember that they were targeted, because they were, whether it was through social media or the ads or the flavors, they have been targeted. We can prove that. They might not think it's harmful because it seems normal. Everyone's doing it, which isn't necessarily the truth, but in their little pocket of the world, it might feel that way. Do your homework so you understand and you can share the health effects that concern you. So tell them, I know this. This is where I got the data. This is where I got the research. This is what it does to your body. Show them that it's not just you as a mom or a dad, concerned, or even grandparent, whoever you are. So how do you talk to your child about vaping? More like, you're going to find the right time, start early. We have kids that are in the 5th grade using vape products. So it is known, it's an issue at our school now that we've been kind of asked to help, and we're going to have a parent night similar to this, what we're doing here in this webinar. So some kids begin in elementary school. I heard the story the other day of a guy who started using marijuana in the 3rd grade. So it's definitely out there. You think your kid's not exposed to it, but they are definitely exposed to it. If they have a smartphone or a tablet or an iPad, they are exposed to it, because it's on YouTube, it's on all the social media platforms. You're seeing it on TV. I mean, I get so irritated when I watch Netflix and I see a kid or a person with a vape, and I'm like, why is that even necessary? It's just like the Disney cartoons that we can go back and find all the smoking in all the Disney movies. And if you had taken the smoking out of it, it wouldn't have made that villain even more worse, or not worse, if they weren't smoking. So that's definitely something that you see. So, and there's really good reports out there on that, the vaping and the media, any of the stuff that we see that it's not a one-time conversation. I'm sure Winna can attest to that, that it's not something that you're going to talk about one time and it's going to fix it or it's going to prevent it. So, and I don't, Winna, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah. Looking back, I wish I would have known so many of these things and so much of this information and knowledge, but we didn't know it back then. And I didn't know who PAVe was. And some regrets I have, and some of the PAVe ladies have gotten after me and said, you know, it's not your fault and it's not your child's fault. Stop being so hard on yourself. But I wish if I could go back in time, I would talk with my children instead of talking at them or to them. I should have talked with them. And more importantly, I should have chosen the right moment to speak to them, because we as parents, we go to bed and this stuff starts stirring in our heads and then it keeps us up at night. And the first thing we want to do is get it off of our shoulders in the morning. And so the second his door would open in the morning, I'd hit him. I'd not hit him, but I'd hit him with what was on my mind. And, you know, I'd want to talk about it. And that is not the time to talk to a teenager right when they wake up. Wait till they get going. Wait until you know they're in a good mood. Because every time I went to him, it was like he was defensive because he knew what was coming and he didn't want to deal with it right then. He had just woken up, you know, and he was probably nick sick and about to go throw up. And I'm sitting there chirping at him about the vape. And I wish I would have chosen the right time to communicate with him. And I wish I would have known about the signs, because my kids checked every single box, every single sign, every box. I wish I knew it in my gut, but I wish I would have had this validation, you know. But that's it. I just wish I would have chosen a better time to talk with him.
And I think that's important for a lot of things. I mean, you know, my two sons are completely different from each other. And I know that about just grades and other things, you know, so it's the same thing with this, you know, knowing when, you know, when you're going to talk to them. And I think one difficult one, that modeling the behavior. So like, what can we do as parents? The modeling of smoking or vaping. It's hard if you're already smoking. That might be something that is an issue, but that's something that a lot of people I know have talked to their kid about. Do you know how hard it is for me to quit cigarettes? Why would you try to vape when we know it's addictive? Definitely talking to your pediatrician. If your child is 18, there are cessation resources out there with nicotine replacement therapy, if that's an option. But there are definitely resources out there. They're finding that a lot of the quitting techniques that are working for youth are peer-to-peer. Other states have found, you know, had some great programs in the high schools and even outside where they talk to each other. And I think that, you know, especially if it's someone who's quit, how did I quit? Why did I quit? So when it's their peer, if their peers are the reason why they're starting, their peers are going to be the place that's going to help them quit. You know, that's going to be the best resource. So I think that that's definitely one of the things that we're focusing on. With our citation, we have kids who now have had a second, third, and sometimes even a fourth citation. That means they've been caught that many times. So as an organization and a community, we are working together to try to find resources. And there are some organizations working on specific programs to help with youth cessation. There's not a lot out there right now, but there are a couple things here. We're on the screen, you can see the Truth Initiative. Truth Initiative is a great resource. They have an app and tech support, so it's delivered in a way that we know the kids respond. Smokefree.gov has the Quit Start app, so it's an app you can download. I do think you have to remember relapse is normal. Be patient. It takes most people many attempts to quit. And that's just with what we know with cigarettes. Again, this is stronger nicotine, more nicotine, increased nicotine. So we're learning how to help them quit. So you're not alone in that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why PAVe is so important, you know, as a resource for me as a professional, as a parent, and as a parent. And I have a lot of parents. I think one of the things that in our small community, there's a stigma around it, just like there is around most substance use. There's a stigma. I had a parent tell me she was so embarrassed. And I was like, you shouldn't be embarrassed, because vaping does not discriminate. It's the cool kids, it's the uncool kids, it's the athletes, it's the nerds, you know, it's all the different stereotypes that we have. They're all vaping. It does not matter who they are or what they're doing. They're all vaping. Not they're all vaping, but there are kids from all groups that are vaping. It does not discriminate. It's not particular to one group. I referred to this tobacco prevention toolkit earlier from Stanford Medicine. I always tell people it is research-based, it is proven, it's not just me making things up. You have Catch, the Global Foundation, Catch My Breath program, that is CVS Health. That is another great resource. We use that in the classes, like I told you, we're in the 5th grade class. Really great resources for parents and even organizations. So I think that that's good. And then if you're looking for policies for your school, there's definitely some websites or some information on the PAVe website. PAVe is an amazing resource. So I definitely recommend, if you're not following their Facebook page, which you're all here today, so you're possibly already doing that, follow the Facebook page. There are other things that PAVe is working on. This is, I think, a really important, I just came from a Rotary meeting where the river keeper was there, and we're having a river cleanup on April 23rd for, and I remember being at a restaurant in Tallahassee and coming across the jewel pods the first time on the ground, thinking, oh, I have not even thought about the environmental impact of these things. And in that tobacco prevention toolkit presentation, they show, jewel devices in the water, like in the ocean, or it's a lake or river. It doesn't show you it's underwater. And you don't think about that. They show that in the landfill. Because if you look at the inside of one of these vapes, there's actually really good diagrams on the tobacco prevention toolkit lessons. They take it apart, and it's all these different little metal pieces and all these different things that are definitely not going to be good for our landfills. We tried to do a vape take back with our drug take back day, and the DEA will take the vapes, but only if they have no battery in them. Well, I have no idea how to even begin to open those to take the battery out. And then what am I going to do with the battery? It clearly shows you a symbol of do not put in the trash can on the vape battery. So that's a whole other issue that I think is great that PAVe is going to, start to address the environmental impacts of the e-cigarettes. And so they have a campaign, the vapes are trash. So I think that's really great. And if you see all those little pictures there, all the different things of vape. And so I think that's going to be really successful. And it does, especially with this generation, the environment does seem to be a little bit more important to them. So I think that this might reach some people that you just might not have reached in another way. So I'm really excited to see where that goes and learn more about that. And like I said, PAVe does have some really great resources. We are made up of volunteers across the country. So, this presentation is here for Florida. I'm not sure if there's anybody that's outside of Florida on the call. I have been on a couple of the other states. It's always interesting to see what's happening in other states. But you can scan that there to join PAVe as an organization. And then there's also, we have the Instagram page, we have a Twitter page, and we have a parent group, Parents Against Vaping. So it's actually a group that you can join. So different from just the general website or the general Facebook page. It's for parents. So great resources, really good help that we offer to each other. Yeah, she's showing you there. So the parent support group. So you can refer other parents, because you will. I've had parents come up to me that their kid has not gotten the citation, but they caught them. And it always breaks my heart. Like I had one that was she's been part of our family forever as a family friend. And I cried when her mom told me, because I was disappointed in her and it upset me, and I wasn't even her mom. So it's gonna make me emotional again, but I know what that feels like as a family friend. So I can only imagine as a parent how it feels. So definitely reach out. And if you want to, you need to connect, even for advocacy, or if you need support, either way, I think it's great. But I thank you for joining us today. And I think we're going to do, I know we went a little bit over time, but I think we're going to do a couple questions. Christina?
Most of what's come into the Q&A have been commentary rather than questions. I've answered a couple of people. We will make a recording. We'll share a link to a recording in a follow-up email, so people can look out for that and feel free to share it. Otherwise, we can wait a couple minutes to see if people submit new questions, but I think obviously we've covered it all. I have to thank you both. That was such a great presentation. Winna, your story is so just impactful to hear, and thank you for sharing it with everyone on this call. And thank you, Leah, for all of your expertise and volunteering your time on top of the work that you do in this area. Yeah, okay, I think we'll close it. Thanks,
well, I want to say
everybody,
one
for
other
joining.
thing.
Oh, go.
I encourage you, PAVe is a great organization, and we're specific to vaping, but I do encourage you to reach out in your community for if you have a drug prevention coalition or Tobacco Free Florida, any of those different resources that you can get involved in where they need help with events. It really does. At the beginning, Christina said it takes a village, or maybe even when I said that, one of us said it. It really, as cliche as it is, it takes a village, and we have got to have. QuitDoc is a great organization. There's other organizations across the state. In your community, reach out to whoever you need to reach out to. If you can't find somebody, you can always reach out to Christina, and she can put you in contact with me. I'll help you find your coalition or whoever, because vaping is an issue, but there are so many other things. We've got alcohol, marijuana, other things that we deal with, and really and truly, anything that's going to cause addiction with our kids is definitely going to be something that we need to deal with. So I encourage you to get involved. If you're here today, it's obviously important to you. So, and get involved in some way, and even get your kids involved. If they're not using or they were using, Winna's story is great. And we don't know these things if people aren't willing to share. So I do applaud Winna for coming on and sharing her story. And good luck to you and the family, that you continue to have good health and aren't facing these issues
Thank
anymore.
you. I think they're on and listening. I think the boys are on.
Good.
So thank you, boys, for being
Yes.
courageous.
Thank you,
Awesome
boy.
to have that support. And if there are other people on the call, not everybody has a story that's as harrowing as Winna's and their families, but if you have a story about your experiences or want to share that, PAVE's advocacy around the country really is so driven and strengthened by parent voices and voices of teachers and pediatricians who are on the front lines and see this stuff every day, and can, share it with people and use the power of that to try and affect policy. So if you're at all interested in sharing your own experience, please get in touch. I put my email in the chat, or you could reach out to info@PAVe. We're always happy to, listen and bring you in and, help amplify the voices of the people who are really affected by this. And I'll just say one last thing. I put this in the chat too, but we have a free virtual conference. It's happening 2 days this year. It's at the end of May 24th and 25th. It's all about youth vaping prevention. There's material for schools, there's stuff for parents, there's stuff for public health, advocates. We do a deep dive into all sorts of topics, from mental health to school policy to the latest health harms research, to treatment options for people that are under 18. So we encourage, we make it very accessible. We have volunteers moderate our panels, and we really try to keep it very engaging and open to anyone. You don't have to be an expert in this for it to be useful. So pre-registration is open, and I encourage everybody to come. Okay, now I think we're done, right?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everyone, again, and thank you for joining.